when you speak. It's so easy. Serendipity. Dip-dip-dippity, yay.
Suddenly, there came a great shriek from the wind. Then a strange thing happened. The house whirled around 2 or 3 times and rose slowly through the air. Dorothy felt dizzy as it rocked and swayed.
You can read a book sitting in the air, or you can read it resting in a rocking chair, or sitting on a bench in a city square, or maybe when you're walking in your underwear, or you can read something anywhere that you care to read. You can read a book in an old canoe. You can read it when you're at the city zoo. You can read it when you're lying on the ground. You can read it when you're on your way downtown. Now you can read something anywhere that you care to read. Reading is the way to find things out. It's the way to get things done. Reading is the way to learn about the world, and it can be fun. Or you can read a book when you're tucked in bed. You can read a book standing on your head. You can read a book on your daily jog. You can read a book when you walk your dog. Oh, you can read something anywhere that you care to read.
What can we do now?
I don't know.
We could read.
No, I want to play.
Get off your creep. There are lots of things to read besides books. Everywhere you look, there's something to read. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Community chest. Go to jail. Go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Gee, what if no one could read?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here before you.
These are my secret orders. But unfortunately, I can't read them.
Double, bubble, double, trouble, bubble, cauldron, bubble.
Uh-oh. I can't read this thing. I have no idea what goes into this cake. If I only knew how to read, I wouldn't have to guess so much.
Oh, do it right. Baboon, baboon.
Imagine a driver who can't read signs. Imagine an actress who can't read lines. And what if there's something that you want to bake, but you can't read what goes into the cake? Or you can learn something anywhere that you care to read. What about a builder who can't read plans? What about a grocer who can't read brands? What if the speaker can't read her speech? If the teacher couldn't read, then what would she teach? Or you can learn something anywhere that you care to read. Reading is the way to find things out. It's the way to get things done. Reading is the way to learn about the world, and it can be fun.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chance. Get out of jail free. Keep that card. Oh, I got doubles. When you get doubles, you go again. 3. 1, 2, 3. Advance to go. Collect $200. You know, if no one could read, this game would be a mess.
Reading isn't always easy at first,
but there are lots of ways to help you figure it out.
If I don't know a word, I'll ask what it means. Tracy, what's this word? Cheshire cat? That means a cat with a funny smile. Okay, thanks.
If I don't know a word, sometimes the rest of the sentence helps me guess what it means. Pictures help a lot.
The best time to read is when you feel like it. When I'm reading, I can make pictures in my own mind. Once I know what the words mean, I can follow what's happening.
So we said, well, hello, my dear, and smiled as though and cheerfully said,
Now a book can be a place you would like to go. A book can be a person you would like to know. A book can be the jungle or the big blue sea. Books can be the things that you'd like to be. The world is yours anywhere that you care to read. The more that you read, the more you know. The more you know, the more you'll grow. The world grows bigger with every line of every book and every sign. Or you can learn something anywhere that you care to read. Reading is the way to find things out. It's the way to get things done. Reading is the way to learn about the world, and it can be fun.
I just love to read my reviews.
I like to read license plates. GJS 595 Georgia.
I like to read my horoscope every day. Whatever you do, stay indoors at all costs.
I like to read fortune cookies and then I like to eat them. A big red bird will give you luck. I like to read about faraway places. I like to read scary stories all by myself.
The dog was already more than 20 feet off, and Cyrus...
I love to read to my children.
When an enormous head emerged from the water. A lamantine, he cried.
When you really love a story, you don't have to read it by yourself. You can read it with other people, too. You can share it.
His master could do nothing to save him. And before Gideon or Herbert thought of bending their bows, Top seized by the dugong.
I like it when my daddy reads to me.
And the little blue angel was saying, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, think I can, think I can, think I can. Faster, faster, faster they went, and soon they were over the top of the mountain. And the little blue engine said, now you tell me what the little blue engine said. I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could, thought I could, thought I could, thought I could, thought I could.
Reading is the way that we find out what people who write are writing about. Reading and writing go hand in hand. Reading is the way we understand what all the words can mean in all the books and magazines. People read books in Japanese, and people read books in Portuguese. People read books the whole world round, in every city and every town. Everyone's alike in that they all just like to read. Nearly everywhere that you find yourself, there's a book or two on a shelf. And many other different kinds of things to read. Why don't you just go help yourself?
What can we do now?
I don't know.
There's nothing to do. Hey, what's that? Watch it! Come with me, said Dorothy, and ask Oz to give you a heart so you could marry the Munchkin Maiden. So the three of them set out, Dorothy, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Woodsman. On and on and on they went, down the yellow brick road, to see the wonderful Wizard of Oz. I must have those silver shoes, she told herself, but Dorothy never took them off except when she took a bath. Give me my shoe, Dorothy was angry. Hee, it's my shoe now. wicked thing, Dorothy screamed. In a rage, she threw her pail of scrub water at the old witch. Stop! The water will be the end of me. Then she began to melt. Soon there was nothing left of her but a spot on the floor. Aunt Em came on the run, but the silver shoes had fallen off and were lost forever in the desert. I'd like to return this book, please. What are you doing here?
Following you.
A book can be a place you would like to go. A book can be a person you would like to know. A book can be the jungle or the deep blue sea. Books can be the things you'd like to be. The world is yours anywhere that you care to read. The more that you read, the more you know. The more that you know, the more you'll grow. The world grows bigger with every line of every book and every sign. Or you can learn something anywhere that you care to read. Reading is the way to find things out. It's the way to get things done. Reading is the way to learn about the world, and it can be fun.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, direct from Raleigh, North Carolina, where it's actually nice outside. That first film, Follow the Reader, it's part of a Serendipity series, and there's other films in that series. And I hadn't seen that, and it has some really catchy, annoyingly catchy 70s songs in it that will probably haunt you, and so I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm sorry and you're welcome. So we watch old 16mm films here. I just did some math, and let's see, we are on episode 248 that we've been doing since mid-March, and and we are on our 1054th film. So on Monday we will have our 250th show. And thank you guys for tuning in every day. It makes a big difference showing this to you and not just to myself. Gives me an opportunity to bust out some stuff that I haven't seen, including that last film. This next film is timely. I busted out roughly this time of year. I generally try to do it for my North Carolina audiences because they are woefully ignorant in the subject of this film. But I just saw some videos, online viral videos of vehicles, people up north who are also woefully ignorant in how this works. And And I showed this film in Houston years ago in August during a show that I called Dag That's Cold, where we pretended like it was cold. And I showed this film about the difficulties of driving on snow and ice. And everybody in Houston just laughed and laughed and laughed because they've rarely ever had to deal with frozen precipitation. They mostly have to deal with floods, mass flooding due to hurricanes. So anyways, here's how to drive on the snow and ice.
Winter, with its snow, ice, and bitter cold, brings the fun of doing things in snowy country. Winter means skiing. Winter means fun. But the same snow and ice that make for fun in winter sports make winter a hazardous time for motorists. So let's take a look at some of these winter hazards and see what can be done to combat them. In Burlington, Vermont, where winters are severe, a good witness to the perils of winter is Police Chief Donald P. Russell. His file on accidents shows motorists with frozen cars, autos that skid and tangle at snow-covered intersections, and the most serious of winter's tolls, death itself. This car went out of control on an icy hill. One way to meet the challenge of winter's accident toll is to teach driving techniques in high school. Let's look in on a winter driving class at the Burlington, Vermont High School and see what we can learn. Why study winter driving? The emphasis is on safety and comfort. Lesson number 1 is to get your car ready for winter. A few checkpoints might be engine oil, thin enough for sub-zero, antifreeze, engine thermostat to keep heater and defroster working well. And when it gets real cold, a compound to keep fuel lines from freezing. Even minor things like cleaning your headlights are important. Your brakes need checking. The instructor warns about letting snow and ice gather under the front fender, which causes trouble in steering. This can even cause accidents. An old print of a strange-looking ice cycle helps us understand about getting a grip by the use of tire chains. In applying chains, fasten the side behind the wheel first, then the front. Make certain that they are tight on both wheels. Then listen for loose, clanking contact with the car. Pull slowly on the paper, and the toy car goes right along in this old parlor trick, showing why it's important not to start too fast on a slippery road. But jerk it suddenly like this, and your car skids. Now see how this trick is put into actual practice. The more slippery the surface, the more gradual should be the start. Ready for a quick quiz? If a car going 20 miles an hour on dry pavement can stop in its own length, how far would it take to stop on ice without chains or snow tires? The first student estimates less than 100 feet. The next guesses at 150 feet. But the instructor places the car at the right answer. You need 200 feet to stop on ice at 20 miles an hour. In practice, the driver slams on his brakes at 20 miles an hour and sure enough takes all of 200 feet to stop. Now, in this next scene, the lesson is grim but unforgettable. Suppose those pylons had been people. When you stop on a slippery surface, you skid. That means swerving, a tendency to whip out of control. But you can come out of it by turning the steering wheel. Which way? The student shows by drawing the front wheels pointed to the right when the rear of the car slides in that direction. Now we go outdoors again as the student and instructor tackle the skidding problem. Here's what happens when you do it the wrong way. I sure wouldn't want this to happen to me in traffic, would you? The instructor now tries the skid technique again, only this time he turns the front wheels in the direction that the rear wheels are sliding. Watch as a skillful sports car driver confirms the proper skid technique by turning his wheels in the direction of the skid. There's a skid at every turn, but each time he turns with the skid. Here's something to remember. The colder it gets, the quicker you can stop on ice. But near the freezing point, a film of water makes the ice very slippery. At 30 degrees above zero, for instance, it takes 200 feet to stop from 20-mile-an-hour speeds. But at zero, you can stop in half that distance. But even at zero, ice is still slippery, as the student finds out in practicing skid control. The car spins on a turn, but now the student knows what to do. The front wheels are turned in the same direction the back wheels are swerving. Also important is the distance between your car and the one ahead. Moving slowly on a dry road, you can follow at car's length, but on ice, safety demands 100 feet. Now let's clear the windshield and look at the subject of driving in snow. It's an art in itself, not always the same as driving on ice. First, have a clear view ahead. Start slowly. Let those snow tires make their mark sharp and clear. Snow, like ice, is less troublesome well below freezing. The training car has no trouble in taking off here. Its snow tires get a grip by carving themselves a track in the snow. The way this cogwheel presses a path in a bed of clay. The people who work in the tire industry are constantly trying to improve the new snow tires. For example, the tread on tires today really grips the snow. Like the cogwheel, it leaves a track, but unlike the crude cogs, it does not pick up the snow or make bothersome road noise. To get the feeling of driving in snow, the instructor and his passengers roll off the main road and drive through fresh snow along a narrow country road. The way you do it is move along at a moderate speed, keep out of rough places, be prepared to shift in a hurry to lower gear. Don't turn too sharply. This is the differential from an automobile. It makes your rear wheels revolve at different speeds in going around corners. But as you will soon see, it also makes it necessary to get traction from both rear wheels. Just for practice, our class tries to drive up a steep side road that's covered with snow. The rear wheels start to slip, and the car can't make it quite to the top of the incline. The car stops. Now everybody wants to help, but the instructor warns that it's easy to fall in pushing on such a slippery hill. Now what do we do? It takes only a moment to decide. This calls for the sand and shovel we've been carrying for just such an emergency. Remember, spread the sand around under both rear wheels because the differential gears would allow one wheel to spin while the other is standing still. Now we have traction for a new start. We're on our way again. An artificial snowstorm shows us how high snowbanks hide cars around corners, an important hidden hazard to keep in mind when driving in newly plowed country roads. And outdoors, the principal gets a real-life test as one car suddenly pops out from behind a snowbank. And speaking of hidden hazards, remember that part of the windshield not reached by wipers can hide another car. In another outdoor test, we see that even snow can be slippery. The instructor applies the brakes at 25 miles an hour, but the car slides many feet, even more the second time at only 5 miles an hour faster. Actually, stopping on a slippery surface, whether snow or ice, calls for pumping the brakes, fast up and down pressure on the brake pedal so the rear wheel takes command of things without pulling the ground out from under. Let's look at another problem. Here's a car hopelessly bogged down in a snowbank just off the road, so the instructor and class get busy. First, we dig the snow away from the wheels to survey the problem. Then clear the snow from around and under the car itself. Remember, we carry the shovel for just such emergencies. Now the digging's done, the path is clear, and with a slow start, the car shakes itself loose and rolls ahead. A different kind of trouble confronts us as the car struggles to climb from a snow-laden side road into a main road. Watch as the driver uses the rock and roll technique, each time bucking a longer, clear space ahead and behind until he has cleared a path for a getaway. The rock and roll technique calls for a steady movement of gear shift from forward to reverse and back, always catching the car for change of motion just as it bounces from extreme forward or back. One important fact about winter driving that the instructor emphasizes now, you can't always be sure what's ahead. Where is the hidden hazard in the drawing? A student comes to the board and gives the right answer. The danger of ice lying in wait for motorists on the shady side of a hill. The hazard in this diagram is represented by the crowned contour of the road so that a car might slide from one side to another. The bank turn on some roads can be treacherous if plows or wind drift let the snow undo the pitch or slant of the bank, so cars may spin to the outside of the turn. Now let's touch on some points stressed in Burlington's check weather conditions before you start. Be prepared for all kinds of emergencies. Be courteous to both motorists and pedestrians. Avoid splashing, for example. Very important, follow at a safe distance. And finally, go slow in snow. Go at a speed that is consistent with the conditions you meet, conditions of temperature, the car itself, and the terrain ahead. This country lane goes back to the days when winter was a time to jack up the car and sit by the fire. Today's safe cars, good tires, and improved roads have changed all that, but now as it was then, the most important factor in winter driving is a well-trained, skillful, safety-minded driver prepared and equipped to meet every challenge of ice and snow.
They laughed and laughed and laughed in Houston. Anyways, yeah. North Carolina drivers just don't know how to deal with this. And in fact, they don't know how to deal with driving in any precipitation. We unfortunately have situations where people drive into flooded areas and don't really know how deep it is, and there are fatalities associated with that. So that is a common, constant problem here in North Carolina. And there was the day that there was a little bit of sleet on the road right around rush hour in the evening, and there were 200 accidents. Cars spinning off roads and hitting other cars and all that. So we're not so great here in the Raleigh-Durham area when it comes to frozen precipitation or any precipitation. So when I was rewinding the 16 millimeter film for Follow the Reader, I noticed in the credits who wrote the lyrics, and it's Jim Burrows. And if you don't remember who Jim Burrows is, he has shown up in many films that we have. He is the guy who made the Uncle Smiley films. And so he wrote the songs for Uncle Smiley. And so that's why there is that 70s, that same type of vibe to the songs in Follow the Reader that other 70 films that I have. So kind of fascinating. Let's see, what would I want to show you next? I have so many things to show. So many things. How about let's talk to cavemen about how to stop drug abuse.
The main way to stop or interdict this kind of a disaster is through the existing legal system. You can use the legal system in two ways. The first way you can use the legal system is by knowing what the laws are under which you must stop the disaster. You have for your use both state and federal laws. You will focus on the federal or national laws, since the drug attack is not limited to any one state. The second way you can use the legal system is through its law enforcement agencies. You have for your use both state agents and federal agents. Again, since the drug disaster is nationwide, you will focus in on the federal agents. Since this case involves a nationwide drug disaster, it is necessary to look at the history of our country's drug laws. Up until 1914, opium and its derivatives could be purchased at drugstores without a prescription. These drugs were commonly found as a major ingredient of tonics and female remedies. This meant that anyone who wanted narcotics could obtain them. However, at the turn of the century, drug use was on the increase, especially when heroin was introduced as a cure for morphine addiction. The Harrison Narcotics Act set out to control the source of narcotics in the United States. Although the Harrison Narcotics Act increased red tape, a person could get raw opiates and other drugs if he had the correct forms. Consequently, our friend who, before 1914, was able to buy his narcotics in the drugstore, now had to purchase them at the back of the pusher store, illegally. Because of the limited success of the Harrison Narcotic Act, the Narcotic Drug Import and Export Act was passed. This act limited the import of opiates into the United States to medical and scientific uses only. It also prohibited any import of morphine or heroin. The aim of the Narcotic Drug Import and Export Act was to limit the use of narcotics for legal purposes. This act covered a gap which the Harrison Narcotic Act had left. The Narcotic Drug Import-Export Act tended to turn drug users to other drugs. Marijuana use began to increase. By 1937, widespread use of marijuana had become a considerable problem in the United States, especially since the main source of this drug was as close as Mexico. In 1937, the federal government passed the Marijuana Tax Act. This act made the use of marijuana illegal except for very limited research. Having made the use of marijuana illegal, the United States government turned again to opiate narcotics to put the finishing touches on opiate use, sale, and possession. The Opium Poppy Control Act prohibited production of the opium poppy in the United States except by licensed growers. This act really made cultivation of opium poppies illegal. The Boggs Act placed a required severe prison sentence for illegal possession or sale of narcotic drugs. However, following World War II and the Boggs Act, narcotic, including marijuana use, was on the increase. The Narcotic Control Act set severe prison sentences on the illegal use of marijuana and other narcotics. This act also carried with it a prison sentence of 10 years to life and an optional death penalty for adults selling heroin to persons under 21 years of age. With the advance of science, other drugs began to appear. These drugs were developed to aid doctors in treating illness. From research laboratories came sleeping pills and diet pills. However, there were people who, because of the laws, were looking for new drugs to abuse. These were the barbiturate, amphetamine, and hallucinogenic type drugs. A college graduate with a degree in chemistry can make LSD with an adequate chemistry setup. These conditions led to the final major drug legislation to date. In 1965, the federal government passed the Drug Abuse Control Amendments. These amendments placed strict controls over the illegal production, use, sale, and possession of depressant, stimulant, and hallucinogenic drugs.
Yeah, so that's part of a series made by Lockheed Aviation, and somebody in the notes, in the comments, noticed that the soundtrack to this was the same as Case Study LSD. It's made by the same people, so they use the same production or library music in the background. Why cavemen? Man, you know, I've asked this many times, and I have multiple films in this series, and my feeling is that this was some sort of Lockheed made this as something for their managers to watch to kind of address the problems of drug abuse in the company, and two, like what was happening outside the company and families of the managers, and how that was impacting or potentially could impact what was happening in the workplace. That's my guess, because, you know, I mean, it could also be similar to Motorola. Motorola made and distributed films on police training and fire safety training because they had their foot in the door. They basically had a relationship with all of these law enforcement agencies, and so they could sell to it. And so it seemed like there was a need. So it could be the same situation where Lockheed Aviation had some sort of foot in the door when it came to selling stuff to the government and to local agencies or whatever, and this was their ability. They were like, well, you know, you not only do you buy jets from us, but we also have this drug education thing because nobody else is offering it. I'm not sure. I don't have any information. I'm just kind of making that up as I go along. But no, it's kind of fascinating. Suddenly, without warning,
running in the channel and love reports are
suddenly and without warning. This is usually the way boating accidents and drownings happen. Each year, for instance, there are about 1,200 drowning victims. These weren't people who drowned while swimming. Most never intended going into the water. Either their boat capsized or they fell into the water. Surprisingly enough, almost half were known to have had life-saving devices available in their boat. Yet most were never used. Why? The answer is simple: time. Boating accidents happen so quickly, there just isn't enough time to react. Look what can happen on a sudden start. Or an unexpected turn. Or to an overloaded boat. These are some of the many emergency situations which make life-saving devices so important. Federal law requires every motorboat to have one Coast Guard-approved life-saving device for each person on board. But just having them on board is not enough. It's somewhat like seat belts and the automobile. They're there, but unless you use them, they're of no help. Remember, whenever you're boating, use Coast Guard-approved life-saving devices. This is a life preserver. It's one of several life-saving devices approved by the United States Coast Guard. Others include the buoyant vest, buoyant cushion, ring buoy, or special purpose device. Which one is best? Of course, the best are Coast Guard approved. But it's up to you to decide which of these is best for your particular needs. Here's how they work. The life preserver, both the jacket type and the bib design, are probably the most effective. They provide maximum protection, hold the wearer upright so that even the face of a non-swimmer or an unconscious person is above water, and will actually turn an unconscious person upright. The buoyant vest. It resembles the bib-type preserver, except that it has slightly less buoyancy. Yet many designs will also turn an unconscious person upright. And because it is less bulky than the preservers, it is favored by people who wish to retain more freedom of action. Special purpose devices. Water ski jump vests, buoyant jackets and vests for hunters, and sailing vests. These devices can be used in other activities. There are many sizes, so be sure yours fits properly. Buoyant cushions, handy in an emergency, and they're easy to throw. However, because they must be clung to in the water, they don't give positive protection to children, non-swimmers, and injured persons. Cushions are not designed to be worn, but if you must, the best procedure is to put your arms through the straps and hug the cushion to your chest. Another procedure is to put opposite leg and arm into the straps. But remember, never wear the cushion on your back. This is what can happen. It'll turn your face under the water. And finally, ring buoys, perhaps the most familiar of all life-saving devices. An excellent device for throwing, but take care not to hit the person in the water. Life preservers, vests, or special purpose devices should be worn by children and non-swimmers at all times, especially in small open boats. For the others, the good swimmers, water conditions and other situations should dictate when and what type of device should be worn. For instance, if you're alone, you need maximum protection. But if you're in a fairly crowded area where others could provide help if necessary, buoyant cushions may be adequate. In any emergency situation, or whenever there's the slightest doubt of safety, life-saving devices should be worn by everyone. Make sure there's an approved device carried and assigned to every person on board, that they know where it is and can get to it in a hurry if needed. And equally important, they should know how it's to be worn and how it will perform in the water. Remember, plan ahead. Expect the unexpected. For only in this way will you be ready should an emergency strike, as it usually does, suddenly and without warning.
Thank you, U.S. Coast Guard, for that film. Also, thank you to Alex for contributing some coffee to the AV Geeks Fund. We run off of coffee and electricity, but mostly coffee. We have electricity, but if I don't feel like doing something, caffeine will help nudge me into feeling like doing something. It is our drug of choice here at AV Geeks, so thank you, Alex, for that. You can the rest of you can contribute, buy us coffee here. Also, if you like what you saw, you can hit like or subscribe or thumbs up or a smiley face or a hug or a notification bell or any number of little iconic ways to show you love. Another thing you can do is share films, share what we do with friends and family and enemies. What do we got? What do we got? Oh boy, this is a great film. I really want to show it, and it seems like now is the time. Let's try not to become too political. Let's just talk about the science. All right, here we go.
This child is showing some of the commonly recognized symptoms of disease. He has fever, he is listless, and his pulse is rapid. But what's going on inside the child's body? Disease germs, shown here as black hexagons, have infected his body through the bloodstream. The germs are repelling these amoeba-like white cells whose work it is to remove foreign materials from his blood. The white cells cannot dispose of them. But under stimulus of the germs, tiny particles called antibodies are being produced and poured into his bloodstream. The antibodies attach themselves to the germs and so change the germs that the white cells can engulf them. At first, the germs increase faster than the antibodies. If this continues, the patient gets steadily worse and may even die. Usually, however, as in this case, antibodies are produced faster than they are used up, and it becomes only a matter of time until the germs are all disposed of and the patient recovers. What's more, he now has a surplus of antibodies that will aid him to resist future attacks of the same disease. And so this child has what we call active immunity because he has developed his own antibodies. He has acquired this active immunity by actually having the disease. Fortunately, there's a safer way to get immunity. This is through vaccination. In vaccination, a substance called a vaccine is introduced into the body. The body responds by developing antibodies, just as in the case of an actual infectious disease. Unlike the disease, however, a vaccine does not endanger life. Let's study three types of vaccines. Calves are the source of smallpox vaccine. Cattle are subject to a weakened form of smallpox called cowpox. Large quantities of vaccine are produced by infecting healthy calves like this one with live cowpox virus. The virus multiplies rapidly, and by the 5th day, crusts have formed on the skin wherever the calf was infected. These crusts are collected. They contain the live germs which will serve as vaccine for human beings. Glycerin is added as a preservative and to provide a vaccine in fluid form. From this mixture, individual doses of the vaccine are prepared. The vaccine may be supplied in a capillary tube like this and applied directly to the skin from the tube. In this disease, the antibodies dispose of the germs, probably without the help of white cells. The child is safe from smallpox for several years. Another type of virus vaccine is used to protect against poliomyelitis. Here, a second type of vaccine is being made. Pneumococci, the germs that cause lobar pneumonia, are being used. For this vaccine, dead germs are needed because there is no weakened form of pneumococci, as there is of smallpox virus. The live germs are killed with chemicals or with heat, as in this case. Now let's see how this vaccine, made from dead germs, works when injected into a live animal. The effect would be the same in a human patient. In the rabbit's bloodstream, the dead germs, shown as pairs of ovals, stimulate the formation of antibodies. As additional injections are given, more and more antibodies form and combine with the germs, which which are then removed by the white cells. This rabbit has now developed active immunity to pneumococcus infections. Now let's take a sample of this blood. The antibodies in the blood of this immune rabbit will attack pneumococci germs wherever they encounter them. After standing a few hours, the blood clots and a serum containing the antibodies separate. When a few drops of this serum are added to a culture of pneumococci, the antibodies come in contact with the germs. Clumps of germs and antibodies settle to the bottom. This is called agglutination. Now let's see how the same serum acts in the case of a rabbit already stricken with a pneumococcus infection. First, the serum is injected into the rabbit's bloodstream. Soon, the antibodies in the acquired serum begin helping the white cells dispose of the germs. In about 2 days, the rabbit recovers. He has passive immunity. Passive because he did not develop his own antibodies, but acquired them from the serum of another rabbit. A third type of vaccine involves the use of poison given off by certain kinds of bacteria. In diphtheria, illness is produced by this poison or toxin. The toxin is first separated from the bacteria. Next, formaldehyde is added to the toxin. Formaldehyde counteracts the poison, but does not destroy its ability to stimulate the production of antibodies. The resulting vaccine is called diphtheria toxoid. The toxoid is packaged, ready for use. It is safe even for tiny babies, and doctors usually recommend vaccinating children against diphtheria before they are 1 year old. When a child is given this injection, the toxoid stimulates the production of antibodies. These antibodies are effective against diphtheria toxin. After an interval of time, a second dose of toxoid should be given. This is called a booster dose. If this is done, the child will usually be immune to diphtheria throughout childhood and need not fear the disease even though it is right next door. Techniques for controlling infectious diseases have been developed primarily through the work of scientists whose painstaking search for new knowledge and improved methods is never-ending. Animals, too, play an important role in the experimental development and in the production of vaccines. Vaccines against the diseases we have studied, and against many others, including typhoid, tetanus, cholera, typhus, and plague. Commercial laboratories make possible the large-scale production of vaccines that meet required standards. Finally, the campaign against infectious disease can succeed only if the public cooperates. Most important of all is vaccination in the early years of life. Many infectious diseases can be brought completely under control when vaccination against them is practiced universally.
Get down from there! Now! Hey! Turn it over! What if it bumped that control by accident? You'd be mincemeat by now. What have I told you? You don't work on equipment when the engine's running.
Well, I told him not to touch anything.
All right, I guess I wasn't thinking.
You weren't thinking? You mean you'll work on engines and machinery and not think of your own personal safety? Here. Shake hands with danger.
Shake hands with danger. Meet a man you ought to know. I used to laugh at safety. Now they call me Three-Fingered Joe. I was young and feisty, never did things by the book. Just let me get my toolbox and I'll take myself a look. I climbed up on a dozier with my mechanic's pride. Said, you can keep it running, friend, while I poke around inside. Shake hands with danger, meet a guy you ought to know. I used to laugh at safety, now they call me Three-Fingered Joe. Although I learned a lesson, I forgot it soon enough. The nicks and burns and scratches showed the young ones I was tough. Till another morning I was grinding on some steel. My other hand got careless and fed my skin into the wheel. Shake hands with danger, step right up and say hello. Grinding wheels and metal are what made me Three-Fingered Joe. I've seen mechanics burning and I've seen them take a fall just to save themselves a minute. I've seen them lose it all. I've watched them courting trouble, seen them take a chance and lose. They get careless for a moment and spend a lifetime with the blues. Shake hands with some friends I used to know. Compared to them, I'm lucky to be just Three-Fingered Joe.
All right, that was Shake Hands with Danger, redone by two guys in a band locally called Knower. And one is Scott Phillips, and the other is Scott Iman, I think? Greg Iman. Greg Iman just won a Teacher of the Year award in Wake County here in Raleigh. So kudos to him. This was part of a campaign that they were to put out a record, they would do a custom song for people who kind of pledged a certain amount. My wife, for my birthday, pledged, I don't know how much. I'm not even going to ask how much. Pledged, and they wrote this song. So, very much appreciate this. Love that my wife did this, and I love the song. It does have a kind of disco-y, but then there's also this kind of Rocky Horror Picture Show, kind of like Richard O'Brien is the singer-ish type of thing. But yes, very much like it. The film before that was, of course, Immunization, second edition, by Encyclopedia Britannica. And it is one of the foundations of public health in the 20th century. It's less about the individual, more about the public health. So someone might have bad reactions to the virus, or to the vaccine, but the vaccine as a whole will help us all. And that's one of the things I think that people focus in on the individual, and they don't think about the grander effects of it. So when I can get a vaccine, I'm going to do it. There's my soapbox. And not just for myself, not just for my wife, but so that I don't spread it to other people in my family and my friends, and stuff like that. So that's my take on it. Now, it might be a while before I can do it, but I'll do it when it's my turn. Anyhow, thanks so much, guys, for tuning in today. Very much appreciate your comments and spending time and pointing out things that I didn't realize. I like that very much, and this is why we like to show these films. So we'll be back tomorrow. And just as a reminder to please rewind and love each other, and including yourself. You know, really take care of yourself. Holidays are brutal anyways, so the fact that we have to do holidays in a pandemic, sometimes it's kind of nice not to have have an excuse of a pandemic to say, like, yeah, well, we won't be doing that family thing or that excruciatingly boring holiday party. But there's other aspects to this. So please take care of yourself. And we will see you tomorrow. Reach out to friends and family if you're feeling low. And also reach out to friends and family who you think might be feeling low. Just check in. You know, doesn't have to be epic. Just check in. Anyways, everybody please take care. We love you. And we will see you soon. Soon being tomorrow.